Hello, my name is Daniel Lee and I'll be showing you how to do the 7th grade worksheet. So first, let's see. I highlighted this because this is especially important for understanding the point-slope equation. Basically, the first step you should do is see you have a point. You also have a slope, right? Now what you want to do with this point and slope is use the slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Now we see what the m is, right? We see m is -2, and we see x is 3, and we see y is 5. Problem, we don't know what b is, so what we can do is substitute like this, and because we know what m is, -2 times x, which is 3, equal to 5, because that's y. -6 equals 5 plus b, add 6 on both sides, you get b is equal to 11. Now with that information, we can write y equals -2, x plus 11, because b is 11 and m is -2. Now, this isn't the point-slope formula, this is just the slope-intercept form. The point-slope equation is this, with the x and y's on one side. Now, because the x is on the opposite side of y, you bring it over by adding 2x on both sides. 2x plus y is equal to 11. And that's your answer for the first problem. Moving on. Now we have a point where we have 2 points actually now. So we don't have our slope. Our slope is unknown. Now what we can do is we can find the slope. This is our first point and this is our second point. This 2 here is a subscript. It's just telling me that that's the second point. It has no factor upon the actual value of the point. It's just telling me that it's the second point. Now, m is equal to y2 minus y1 is over x2 minus x1. This is the equation to find the slope. Now, y2 is 9, y1 is 0, x2 is 6, and x1 is 1. So what we get is 9 minus 0 is 9, 6 minus 1 is 5. 9 over 5, right? Now we can put it back into this slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. M is 9 over 5, and we don't know what b is. So what we can do is we can substitute x and b. X is 1 and 0. The only reason you can use either points, but the only reason I'm using the first point is because there's a 0, and with zeros it's just a lot faster. So now you have 9/5 plus b is equal to 0. Subtract 9/5 on both sides so that you can find out what the value of b is, which is -9/5. Now, if you put it all back into the original slope-intercept form, you get y equals, what is your slope? 9/5. 9/5 x plus -9/5, right? Because that's your slope. That's your y-intercept. Now you have this equation, but that's not your point-slope equation because there's an x on one side and a y on the other. We got to bring this over. So what we do is we subtract 9/5 x on both sides. Now, -9/5 is equal to y minus 9/5 x, right? Now we have fractions, and we don't really like how the fractions look. So what we can do is we can multiply -5 on both sides. Now, -5 times y is -5y. -5 times -9/5 x is just plus 9x. And -9/5 times -5 is just equal to 5. Sorry, no. It's just equal to 9. Right? So we can say that 9x minus 5y is equal to 9, which is going to be the answer for number 9. Moving on. Now we have two problems. Same thing. We have one point, we have another point. Now what we can do is find the slope because we don't know what the slope is. y2 minus y1. 1 minus 6. 1 minus 6. 9 minus 4. Because x2 minus x1. Negative 5. 5. 9 minus 4 is 5. 1 minus 6 is negative 5, which is negative 1. So now we know that our slope is negative 1, so we can put it into the slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. Now, we know what the m is, and we already know what the point is, right? So what we can do is we can substitute. Now, you can use any point. You can use the first point or the second point. It doesn't really matter. Negative 1 times 4, the first point, equals 6. Negative 4 plus b equals 6. So b equals 10 because plus 4 on both sides, you get b equals 10. Now you have the actual equation, y equals negative 1x, because that's our slope. And because we know our y-intercept is 10, we can substitute that value for b. Now we have the equation y equals negative x plus 10. But because x and y are on opposite sides, we got to bring it over. So you add x on both sides. X plus y is equal to 10. That is your answer. Okay, next problem. Oops. We have 1 point. Second point. First, find the slope. 0 minus 2. 0 minus 2. 4 minus 1. 4 minus negative 1. That is important. 4 minus negative 1. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. 4 minus negative 1 is going to be 4 plus 1, which is negative 2 over 5. Okay, so now we know what the slope is. Now we can move on to finding our y-intercept, which is y equals, because we know what the slope is, we can replace that, negative 5, 2 plus b. And we know what our x and y is because we know a point. So what we can do is substitute. We have y2, which is 0, x2, 4. Multiplied together, negative 8 fifths equals 0 plus b. So that means b is equal to 8 fifths. Now we have our answer, y equals mx plus b. Put it back into the equation. Negative 2 fifths x plus 8 over fifths. Okay? Now because x is on one side, we move it over. 2 fifths x plus y is equal to 8 fifths. Now, we don't really like to see fractions because it just gets really messy. So what you can do, what you can do is multiply both sides by 5. 2x plus 5y, because 2 fifths x times 5 is 2x, and y times 5 is 5y. 5 times 8 fifths is 8. That's going to be your answer for number 17. Now, this is pretty simple and pretty basic. Sketch a graph of each line below. Now you have y equals 1, right? So when y equals 1, when x increases, y is still 1. When x decreases, y is still 1. So basically what you're saying is that y will always be 1. So this is going to be how your line will look like. Because no matter which point x is, y is always going to stay as 1. Moving on. X is equal to 7. Basically the same thing as 1, except that this time we're dealing with x. X, right? So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, when it says x equals 7, that means no matter what, x will always stay 7. So if y increases or y decreases, no matter what, x will always be 7. And that's how you draw that graph. Now, let's see, graph the equation. Now we see here, graph the equation below. Instead of just a single y or an x, they give us an actual equation. So what we can do is create the slope-intercept form so we can find out what the equation is. Y minus 1 equals 3x plus 18, because 3 times x is 3x and 3 times 6 is 18. Now we add 1 on both sides. That gives us y equals 3x plus 19. And that's our equation. Now to graph this, okay, so you can see that it only reaches 11, but because the y-intercept is 19, it would reach all the way to 19. And to do that, I'll have to create a graph of my own. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 19. And so when you're plotting graphs, it's a good idea to find your x-intercepts and y-intercepts, because that gives you 2 points to connect easily. So because I know that 19 is my y-intercept,